Hello, good yo-yo people. Let's talk sponsorship. So sponsorship, yo-yo sponsorship. It's one of those things, if you've been playing yo-yo for more than a month, you're probably already thinking, I can't wait to get sponsored. That was me at one point for sure. I've been yo-yoing actually since I was a little kid, but I got back into it shortly after I got married. Been married a little over 8 years, 8.5 years or so. So I've been yo-yoing with unresponsive yo-yos for about 8 years. It wasn't long until I got excited wanting to represent a company. Did you hear what I said? I didn't say I got excited because I wanted free stuff from a company. I was excited because I wanted to represent a company. Being a sponsored player is not just about getting free stuff. That's a perk. Just like any job, I go to my job. A big perk of it is that I get money and I get to pay my bills and feed my kids and pay my mortgage. But the reality is I also go to work because I love it. I like what I do. I like the responsibilities that I have. Yo-yoing is just like that. It is, as a sponsored player, it's your job. And your income, for most cases, is yo-yos. And if you don't know, I'm sponsored by 2 companies. I've been sponsored by Squared YoYos for about 5 years or so. This Nessie here was one of the first ones I got from them, and so I figured I'd bring that out here. I also have a sponsor here. I have some of their string on here right now, Spool Thread Co. And so if you didn't know that, I picked them up a couple months back. And so I think I have some things to offer as far as, I'm not necessarily gonna give you a formula for how to get sponsored, but let me tell you a little bit of my story. With maybe hearing my story of how I became sponsored, maybe this will give you a few tips that you could also be, if that's something that really you see on the horizon for you, maybe you can also apply those tips, okay? I've lived in Columbus, Ohio for about 6 years, a little less than 6 years, and I moved here from Kansas City, Missouri, and that's where I started yo-yoing back again and started really getting into it. And I'd never really considered completely pursuing sponsorship until I completely moved here. So when I moved here, I knew that Squared YoYos, at the time, Squared YoYos was fairly new, been around for a year or less, and only had put out 2 yo-yos, the Albatross and the Nessie here. And I had owned both of them at one point, actually, whenever they first sold them on High Speed Yo-Yo, whenever Brett was still part of Squared YoYos. That's a whole other history there. But anyways, whenever that store was up and running, I bought a Albatross there directly, and that was before I was sponsored by them. So I had played their yo-yos. I liked the product that they were putting out. I also got a chance to, whenever I was writing for yoyoskills.com, whenever it was really active under Dr. Yo-Yo. See how tactful I'm being? Some of you know this history, some of you don't. I'm not going to bore you with it. So anyways, when I was writing for Yo-Yo Skills, I ended up reviewing the Nessie, loved it, and so I already had a familiarity with their product and sort of their perspective. And so when I moved here, if you don't know Jake, he's from North Canton. All that to say, I contacted him. They had just formed their team a few months earlier, and I knew that they were doing sort of an audition sort of thing where you had to put together a tape for a little bit of why you would want to be on Squared YoYo, sort of an interview, and then also do a trick video showing off your editing skills and so on. And I asked them, hey, are you still looking for people? And they said, sure, send some stuff. So Jake would probably tell you that I was way whinier about it. I was just excited to maybe be on their team. And so I kind of probably pushed too much. I was not as cool and calm and collective as I normally am. Right. I put together a video. They were like, can you not do a 10-minute video next time whenever you're just talking about yourself? So anyways, I did that, put together, it was mediocre, honestly. Looking back on it, I'm like, it was okay. My editing skills weren't that great. They still aren't amazing. But the reality is, I think what they saw is my passion for yo-yoing and my passion that I could put into their team, and they could invest in that, and I can invest in their brand as well. And that's the part here. It's mutually beneficial. All right, it is not just what a company can do for you if you are considering getting sponsored. Look at most of the sponsored players out there. It is not just what the company does for them. If that's the case, you probably won't be on the team for very long. Just like a job, if you are just kind of showing up, hey, I'm just collecting paychecks, your boss is probably going to get wise to that after a while and realize maybe there's somebody else that's better fit for the job. Jake supports me and my passions. You know, yesterday he called me up and wanted to know more about Let's Talk Yo-Yo, and I think that's awesome. And he has always been in my corner, and that's amazing. And same thing with Eddie over at Spool Thread, always been in my corner, and it's great to have that support. But also, I give back in whatever way I can, whatever way I feel I should. And so that's showing up at contests when I can and be throwing G Squared and Spool Thread. When I go to club, I'm promoting G Squared and Spool Thread. And I'm letting people know, and I'm a good example in the community. You know, and so a lot of the ways that I personally do that is I love to teach kids how to yo-yo. I love to demonstrate the passion I have for yo-yo. I've done a lot of, it's been a while, but I've done in the past a lot of like even senior homes where I kind of talk about the history of yo-yo and how it's gotten from when they were kids to now. And I love just kind of sharing that joy. I also had an opportunity with Yo-Yo Expert to get a card, and that was awesome a couple years back. And so even then I give those out, even in trades and sales and stuff. I put them in a box and I sign it, and it's just a small way of maybe giving back to the brand that supports me and the people that support me. I'll lay it down like this. If you're interested ever in getting sponsored, here's a couple tips I would give you in my advice. One, you got to act like you're already sponsored. If you're like, hey, I want to be sponsored by so-and-so, well, you need to actually play their yo-yos. And if you have social media, which you should, it's kind of impossible to be sponsored without social media of some kind. So say if you're on Instagram and you're throwing trick circles, let people know what you're throwing. Tag them, whatever. Now, don't be obnoxious about it. Don't be constantly sending them DMs saying, hey, did you see my post? Did you see my post? I want to be sponsored. Sponsor me. Don't do that. It's obnoxious, and you know it's obnoxious. Don't do it. Get their attention. Let them know that, hey, I'm interested in possibly being sponsored. Keep an eye on me. And that's it. Don't push it. And if they're looking to sponsor somebody, you very well might be on the table for them already. The other thing I would say is it's mutually beneficial. So don't get into a sponsorship thinking or pursuing a sponsorship thinking, hey, I really just want stuff from them. Think about what you can contribute. Think about your personal brand. And that can develop over time. Over the last 5 years being sponsored by Squared YoYos, it's certainly adapted over time of what I feel like I can contribute and what I can offer. But I'm constantly offering things. I'm never just sitting back saying, okay, hey, I'm just waiting for that sponsorship package to do something. So that's my 2 tips. There's probably more there. All right, that's gonna do it for today. I hope that was helpful, maybe sharing a little bit of my story. And if you're sponsored, I would like to hear your story in the comments as well. Maybe you have some advice that I missed out on. If you've never been sponsored, maybe there's something you want to know that I didn't cover. So make sure you let me know in the comments. All right, and as usual, good day and good yo-yo.